Hello, everyone. This is John Kountouris, and you are listening to my show, Greek News on Demand, which is based off of my news website, GreekNewsOnDemand.com. That's one word, GreekNewsOnDemand.com. If you'd like more information about me and the work that I do, you can go to my personal website. My personal website is johnkountouris.com. That's spelled JohnKounTouris. This show, as you may already tell, is about Greece. It's about all the latest updates in Greece with its economic crisis. If you're a first-time listener, I hope you'll enjoy it because I provide some of the best news coming straight out of Greece from the best sources, intelligence sources, journalistic sources, government sources. So basically, I have this 1 hour broadcast well covered, and I'm going to get into a little bit more about me for those who don't know yet, because this is important. And then we're going to get into what's going on in Greece now, recently, with all its latest developments with the Troika from Europe. We just had the Greek Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras visit with the Turkish ambassador in the area of Thrace in Greece, which is like northern Greece. And basically, Alexis Tsipras was hinting to this ambassador from Turkey that he may consider renaming certain areas of that region of Greece, certain cities of that region of Greece, with the old Turkish names that it had in the past under the Ottoman Empire. Now, as a Greek person, or even as a non-Greek person, let's say as a Philaline, if you're a Philaline is a person that loves and supports the Greeks. Well, anyway, regardless, maybe you're just a healthy, normal thinking person who's involved in politics and who cares about what's going on in the world. This in itself is just an unbelievable treasonous statement on the part of the Greek Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras. And it shouldn't come to a surprise for those of us, Greek or non-Greek, who know basically what's going on in Greece, in its political climate, in, let's say, recent decades. And the real problems with Greece have been occurring from 1974 up until now, this very day, which is another huge topic and issue, because this whole period that I mention is something called the metapolitevses, in Greek, metapolitevses, which translate into English the post-electoral period, or rather the post-political period, and it's usually used to describe a brand new political period that is occurring after that, let's say, of an older sort of political period which dominated the political landscape for years, which is what happened in Greece from, let's say, the turn of the century up until about 1974, or more so, from its refounding as a nation in 1821 up until 1974. So basically what Alexis Tsipras said was no joke. It was very offensive, to say the least, and of course it constitutes high treason. The guy basically, should be executed for saying something like that, because it straight out gives to the enemies of the nation basically the impetus to basically come and invade us, to come and invade Greece. So basically, that is just one act of treason amongst many which the present Greek government has done for a period of about, let's say, about a year and a half now. Syriza was first elected January the 25th, 2015, and they've been in power up until now. So almost a year and a half. The other treasonous acts that they have committed are agreeing to basically allow the Turks and NATO to patrol the Aegean waters due to the so-called migrant crisis, quote-unquote migrant crisis. That's another huge issue because the migrant crisis ties in with the Greek economic crisis because Greece has been inundated with migrants and illegal immigrants from all over the world, not just Syria, but from many other nations who are taking advantage of this migrant crisis. Now, what's interesting is that basically the majority of the Syrians that have come into Greece are Muslim. They're not even Christian, which is something that concerns us because, obviously a Greek Christian nation wants to deal with Christians and not Muslims. It's just that plain and simple. Now, I know there's a lot of good Syrian people that have fled Syria for obvious reasons, and rightly so. But this whole thing, though, is being staged. And this is something that they, the Greek people, and all the peoples of Europe and all the peoples of the world need to understand. And this crisis, this migrant crisis, is tying in with what's going on in Greece, and it's very devastating. So anyway, back, it was March of this year, Tsipras, his government, and basically the Turks and NATO, they came to some type of an agreement where the Turks would be allowed to basically patrol the Aegean waters in conjunction with Greek Navy. In conjunction with the Greek Navy and, of course, with NATO. Now, many reports out of the Greek media and from Greek activists have basically said this is nothing but a ruse because what's going to happen is the European Union and NATO are going to use this as an opportunity for the Turks to invade parts of Greece, particularly Greek islands, to take them over, to claim them as theirs, and basically take over parts of, basically when they take over these islands, let's say hypothetically, if they were to, then they would be able to claim all of the natural resources that are basically hidden under, let's say, the Aegean Sea. Because it's now a common fact that the Greek Aegean Sea is full of minerals, methane gas, and petroleum. Trillions and trillions of dollars worth in natural resources. So this is the main reason why the Turks basically want to get into the Aegean Sea and claim some of these islands as theirs, because if they do so, what they'll do is redefine Greece's undefined economic zone. Greece and Turkey and Cyprus have something called an undefined economic zone, which is basically areas around the Turkish Sea, the Greek Sea, and the Cypriot Sea that are basically, defined in general as their territorial waters. But basically, with regards to the natural resources that are hidden under these territorial waters, neither of these countries has yet to basically define specifically, where these natural resources are and basically where they fall within their national boundaries. It's a very difficult and complex issue, but it's dragging on for many years now because the United States, the European Union, NATO, Turkey, they want this issue to drag on, and they don't want basically the undefined Greek economic zone to be defined as it should be in favor of the Greeks, because once it does, then that means that the Greek people are going to basically be able to then go drill for all these natural resources and become super wealthy overnight. And this is something that the powers that be don't want to happen. This is a major, major issue. And basically, we like to call this issue the gray zone issue between Greece and Turkey. Cyprus plays a role in this too. Now, there was sort of a official agreement made recently by Israel, the Greek government, and the Cypriot government, where they basically would all agree to make some type of have some type of natural resource agreement where each of these nations would basically create an alliance together, let's say, and share each other's natural resources. So that is another treasonous act that the Greek government has committed, making such an agreement with such a illegal state as that of Israel. But anyway, besides all this, the Greek government has basically allowed the Turks to enter into Aegean waters, which is high treason, which should never happen. And they know darn well that the intentions of the Turks are to go and claim Greek islands and make them theirs, and thus take over certain areas of Greece. And once they do that, they're going to be able to claim part of the undefined Greek economic zone, which contains major natural resources, particularly petroleum. This is what the whole issue is with regards to this agreement. And this was done without the vote of the Greek people. It was done treasonously, arbitrarily, treasonously by the Greek government. It was unprecedented. Not even the previous treasonous Greek prime ministers would ever do such a thing. And believe me, in the past, from 1974 up until now, we've had some of the worst treasonous Greek prime ministers who have destroyed the great nation of Greece, along with its culture, its language, its history, its heritage, everything. So, basically, I just wanted to start this broadcast mentioning that because it was a huge piece of news that was sent to me personally from Greek intelligence, from the National Intelligence Agency in Greece. And I get a lot of my information from these people. And basically that's how I'm able to write the bombshell articles that I do as a journalist for both the Greek newspaper that I write with in print, which is called The Free Hour. In Greek it's called Eleftheri Ora, the Free Hour. And I also, of course, write for my news blog, GreekNewsOnDemand.com. Now, if you go over to GreekNewsOnDemand.com, just look in the top right-hand corner, and you're going to see how it says in conjunction with JohnKountouris.com, my personal site. And under that, I have a column of other selections there, and one of them is English articles. Just click on that link where it says English articles, and you'll be able to read some of our most up-to-date and revealing articles on Greece, as well as, of course, other pressing international political issues. Let's now cover another big news item of the day. Basically, Israel just celebrated its 68th year of disgusting, illegal existence. And the Israeli embassy in Athens, Greece, put on this huge gala, this huge party, and invited, of course, all of the political officials from all the political parties from the Greek parliament. And basically the top parties were invited. Syriza, which is the ruling party. The independent Greeks were invited, which is part of the coalition government in the Greek government, because the Greek government itself is composed of Syriza and the independent Greeks. So that means that Syriza does not have basically a majority by itself. It had to basically form an alliance with the independent Greeks in order to gain a majority in the Greek parliament. And the majority requires 153 seats out of 300 parliament seats. So basically I had to write an article about this today, and basically get into this other, of course, major treasonous issue that the Greek government of today has caused, and that is tighter relations with Israel. Now, this issue is very extensive, and I will be making other broadcasts on this for sure. But basically, the Israeli ambassador to Greece, a lady that by the name of Ira Barat, something like that. I really can't remember her name, and it's kind of complicated to pronounce. Anyway, if you Google it, you'll be able to find her full name. She put on this huge party in her house today to celebrate Israel's 68th year of a filthy, disgusting, illegal existence. And basically, like I said, all the top leaders were invited. And all it was basically an opportunity for these Greek politicians to schmooze with the Israeli government, because they all know damn well that unless they have the Israelis' government approval, they're not going to be able to advance in politics. That's just a fact. And we all know by now that the State of Israel was founded on the blood of many slain Palestinians at the hands of the Jews and, of course, the Israeli army in general. Many, many massacres have occurred since then, since its illegal founding in 1948. But, of course, with the one issue they don't want to touch is the fact that in 1947 it was the United Nations itself that ruled that basically, Palestine belongs to the Palestinians and that the Jews don't have a right to take it over, which is, of course, something that they ignore, as well as the rest of the international community. Not all of the international community, just those, of course, nations that, treasonously and cowardly support Israel. Just those nations, obviously. Also, I posted another article today basically talking about how the mayor of Thessaloniki, which is in northern Greece and which is the second largest city in all of Greece, went today to a major Jewish synagogue in that same city, Thessaloniki, and he met there with another top Greek politician from the New Democracy Party in order to basically celebrate the renewal of this huge, well-known Jewish synagogue there. Now, this in itself is another treasonous act because the Jews themselves as a people have a very, very long criminal past against the Greeks themselves. And this is a huge issue, which, again, I could do many broadcasts on this alone. As I said before, the Israelis have committed horrible atrocities against the Palestinians, which is something that we need to shout about every day until we get the victory in this matter, until we press the U.S. Congress, until we press the United Nations to change your opinion on Israel and begin to support, of course, the Palestinians and work towards dismantling, of course, the criminal state of Israel. But what I haven't mentioned yet is that the Palestinians themselves are the descendants of the Philistines, who basically existed thousands of years ago, and of course are mentioned in the Bible. But the Philistines are related to the Cretans, and they were first developed as a people in Crete, and later after that they moved from there, and they actually settled in Palestine hundreds of years before the Christian era. This is a well-established fact. So, during the Christian era, the Romans, what they wanted to do was mock the Jews at this time. And so what they did was, instead of allowing this area to keep its original name, Philistia, they Latinized it, and they call it Palestine. Palestine is nothing more than Philistia in Latin. So the Romans did this thousands of years ago to mock the Jews. And this is, of course, something that very few people know about, unless, of course, you've studied biblical history and things of that sort. So the Jewish community in Thessaloniki, Greece, which is, again, the second largest city in all of Greece, they have a long criminal past against the Greek people and against the Greek state at large. For example, back during Kemal Ataturk's rise to power in Turkey, it was basically the Jewish community in Turkey that supported, in Thessaloniki, Greece, that supported his rise to power in Turkey. Now, some of you may be saying, isn't Kemal Ataturk Turkish? Yes and no. Kemal Ataturk, according to his own words, and according to major national newspapers, was Jewish in origin. In 1914, he gave an interview to a Jewish newspaper in occupied Palestine, and he basically said, I am a descendant of the Jewish Messiah, Sabbatai Zevi. So this might come as a shock to many people who have studied Turks. It may come as a surprise to those who have studied Turkey's modern history. Now, what I just mentioned is not a conspiracy theory. It's a well-recorded fact. Not only that, this whole idea of crypto Jews, of course, crypto coming from the Greek word krypto meaning something that's concealed or hidden. This whole issue with crypto Jews, meaning how many prominent Jewish figures over the centuries have hidden their Jewish identity, it's not really a cryptic issue. It's not really a hidden issue. It's an issue that's sort of been an open secret, at least, for many centuries. There's been many prominent politicians who have admitted their Jewish heritage, and we thought that they're either hiding it, or when we thought they were actually of another ethnicity. And of course, Kemal Ataturk in this case is a perfect example. And not only that, but it was Kemal who openly supported Zionism, who supported the Jews' push for a homeland state, and other prominent issues. Issues, of course, pertaining to the interests of world Jewry. So, Kemal Ataturk, it's good that I mention him too, because tomorrow is March the 19th, which is when we commemorate the great Pontian Greek slaughter. Now, this took place almost 100 years ago, from a period of about 1915 to about 1925, roughly. During this period, of course, Armenian Christians were slaughtered too by the Turks. Now, we know that Kemal Ataturk played a huge role in this. And, of course, he played a huge role in the Smyrna catastrophe, which took place in September 1922. He, of course, was the then leader of the Young Turks, who were all, of course, crypto-Jews themselves. Now, the Young Turks came from a sect, a religious sect called the Donme, D-O-N-M-E. And for those who have studied the history of the Young Turks, they would know this already. Many Armenians, many Greeks, many Europeans, many Turks, they know about this. They know about this issue, and they know also the fact that the Young Turks were sort of this revolutionary socialist movement to overthrow the old Ottoman Empire. Well, all of their leaders were Jews. You can find tons of historical books that have been written about this. All you have to do is just Google Young Turks, Jews, Donme, and you'll basically find numerous amounts of articles and books that have been written on the subject. So basically, this is an issue that needs to come to the light, because everyone thinks, oh, it was those evil Turks that killed the Greeks and the Armenians. Well, they weren't really Turks per se. They were actually Jews, and they were carrying out what their Jewish religio-political ideology tells them to carry out. And that is, of course, the slaughter of the non-Jews, the Goyim, particularly the Greeks. Because if you read the Jewish Talmud, it specifically states there in numerous sections that the Greek people are an abominable people, and they must basically be eliminated. I mean, there's so many grotesque references to the Greeks as a people, it's ridiculous. For example, they say that the Greek people are like beasts and they copulate with each other like beasts. There's another section where it says, the best of the Greeks basically must be killed, etc., etc. That's another broadcast that we can get into. But keep that in mind. The Talmud itself specifically addresses the Greeks. Anyway, I'll leave that issue along with the Greek-Turkish issue to the side for now, because they're very long, very extensive, but I just wanted to touch on them here so that you all know basically, that, what the Greeks are up against with regards to the world political scene. And, of course, Israel itself, the dominant player there in the Middle East. Now, another news item I want to direct your attention to is a new documentary series by National Geographic that will start soon. It will be starting June 1st, and it will last till October. And it is entitled The Greeks by the National Geographic. Actually, it says The Greeks, Agamemnon to Alexander the Great. So they're basically going to be covering this period from the Bronze Age all up until, of course, the Golden Age in Athens, and then basically on up to Alexander the Great's reign. Apparently, it looks pretty interesting. I have some reservations about it, mainly because National Geographic is controlled by mainstream news media. I believe it's Fox News or one of the big networks that owns a big share in it, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, double check that for yourselves. But regardless, National Geographic is mainstream news media content, so just be aware of that. But I will tell you this, though, that mainstream news media, academia, governments of the world have for many, many years gone on a campaign to malign the Greeks, to undermine their power and their influence upon Western civilization. There's an effort basically to de-Hellenize, let's say, Western civilization, which is just stupid. It's insane. It's idiotic, because all of Western civilization, with its culture, its language, its institutions, were all founded on the Greeks. That's a fact. The language that we speak, whether it be English, Spanish, French, you name it, was all based on Greek. Latin, of course, Italian, Spanish, the Romance languages, they came from Latin, and Latin came from Greek. Anyway, my book that I wrote in 2014 with the title Your Academic Guide to the Greek Language, Culture, and Civilization by John Kountouris, JohnKounTouris, is a very good way to start learning about the Greeks, their history, their language, their great accomplishments, and what's going on with them today. And you can find that on Amazon's Kindle. So I spent many years basically compiling research to write that book. And basically in that book you're going to find details about the Greek language, culture, and history, Stuff basic you've never heard before that is derived from some of the best scholars, Greek and non-Greek, that have tackled these issues over the centuries, over the last few centuries. Now I'm going to be doing some other broadcasts just on my books alone because they contain basically a lot of very pertinent details in order to elucidate many issues surrounding ancient Greece, the Byzantine Empire, and of course modern Greek history. Another important news item of the day that I blogged about on my news blog is basically how the great modern day leader in Greece's modern history, Konstantinos Karamanlis, again that's Konstantinos Karamanlis, whose family, the Karamanlis family, has been a very powerful player in the Greek political scene for many decades. It's now come out that he is the ultimate traitor. Now, we're talking about a guy who is recognized by world politicians worldwide. He's a very famous guy. He's had tight relations with the U.S. government, with the Turks, with the Israelis. It's come out that he was a total puppet of the U.S. government and Henry Kissinger during the Cypriot crisis that first broke in 1974, whereupon the Turks invaded the southern part of Cyprus. So, but the issue is today there's so many pseudo-patriots in Greece that still believe that this guy was a great ethnarch who helped to found modern Greece. Starting from the 50s and when he was prime minister, and then again in 1974 when he became prime minister again after the fall of the Greek junta. So according to recent revelations by some very, very good, trustworthy Greek journalists, Mr. Karamanlis worked together with the Germans during World War II and helped cover up the fact that he worked together with the butcher of the Greeks during that era. I'm talking about the German officer Murden. And basically at that time, right after World War II and on, he agreed basically with the Germans. He made a secret agreement with the Germans, along with other Greek politicians of that era, to basically shut up the whole case permanently about German reparations to the Greeks during World War II. So all this revelation just came out about Konstantinos Karamanlis, which to me is not surprising because back in November, I believe it was November last year, I had written a front page article for the newspaper that I write for, which I just mentioned, the Free Hour, in Greek Eleftheriora, where I revealed how basically, according to the CIA itself, the same Karamanlis was basically a Nazi sympathizer during World War II, and he cooperated with Merten, the guy I just mentioned, the German general, and that he also, according to these documents, participated in the extermination of Jews, something which is a total fairy tale, but I won't really get into that in this broadcast because it has to do with the fake Jewish Holocaust and all of that garbage, which has been disproven over and over again by authorities worldwide to be an utter farce, to promote the plans of world Jewry to gain the sympathy of the Western world so that therefore they can take over the control of the institutions of the Western world and thus bring in their Jew world order, which is what I like to term it, or as we know it, New World Order. Now, don't listen to me. You can just look at the front page of the New York Times back in October of 1940, I believe it was. I wrote an article on this too, or October 1940, where it states that World War II was to bring about a New World Order for the Jews. And if you just Google that or YouTube it, You can find it. It's all there. New World Order for the Jews, New York Times, 1940. So, again, these things aren't secrets. They're not keeping anything secret. They're not conspiracy theories because they're already out in the open, being leaked to us through mainstream news press. All we have to do is open up our ears, our spiritual ears and eyes, to learn the truth. And if you know the truth shall set ye free. So, in my article, like I just stated, I talked about how the CIA leaked documents to the public through its own archive. And these documents dated back to 1961. And they were drafted by like some Greek politician, some Greek ambassador to Israel. And basically he talked about the fact that during Adolf Eichmann's trial in Israel during that era, Mr. Kountouris should have been included in that trial because he too participated in the extermination of Jews. Well, number one, we know that the Nuremberg trials and Adolf Eichmann trials were nothing but garbage. And again, this ties into the whole fake Jewish Holocaust, which is another issue, which I won't get into here, but I will get into another broadcast because the one thing you got to understand is this. Jewish Holocaust, there was no such thing during World War II. There was only the Holocaust of European nations. And this issue dates back from the turn of the century, actually, to World War I and then on into World War II. And I'm talking about the Armenian genocides, the Greek genocides. I'm talking about the genocide of the German people during the end of World War II. I'm talking about the Ukrainian genocides, the genocides of many other peoples, the Russian peoples, of course, at the hands of the Jewish Bolshevists, from Lenin all the way to Stalin and on. And if you notice, all these people are white Europeans. And the people that were genociding them were none other than Jews themselves. And that is a fact. So, we've got it all in reverse. Mainstream news media, which is controlled by powerful Zionist interests, have told us lies for years. Our school books are full of lies. They need to be rewritten. And all of this presupposes, though, a spiritual awakening on the part of the masses in order for them to realize what's really going on and how they've been sold a fake bill of goods for so many years about all these issues. So let's stay positive. Let's be patient with people who don't believe like us or who haven't been enlightened yet like some of us out there. And let's continue to, strive to wake up people, to open up their minds. And this, of course, entails us doing our research, being patient with people, and, basically just sticking in this fight, because a lot of us out there who are historical revisionists, who are activists, who are real journalists, we understand what we're up against, but we have to have the right weapons and tools in order to basically wage this war and win it. And the war is already ours. All we have to do is understand basically that unless we get the right tools and unless, of course, we reunite, we'll never be able to defeat the New World Order and all these forces we're up against. So all this presupposes, of course, us being well prepared, coordinated, and equipped to wage this war, to win it, and to secure basically our victory. And we can do it. I will tell you this: white European Europe for centuries and centuries and centuries kept powerful Jewish interests out of their countries, and that's the reason why Jews were kicked out of many European Union, not European Union, but European countries from the turn of the century on up to the from the 4th century, on up to the turn of the century. And that's a span of about 1,500 years. And the reason why is for obvious reasons, due to their criminal nature, due to their financial malfeasance, their financial fraud, their human sacrifices. The list goes on. It's extensive. So, anyway, going back to Greece, Konstantinos Karamanlis basically was a pseudo-conservative leader. And he was actually a big traitor, and he tailored to the interests of the United States and of the Turks and of the Israelis when he was prime minister in Greece. And he made this he created this phrase back in 74 when he had assumed power again after the fall of the Greek junta, which was the following: we belong to the West. We belong to the West. And at that time, he was signaling to the Greek people that the Greek people, their language, their culture, everything would now basically, their whole understanding of the world would be geared toward the West. Which was just ridiculous because, first of all, the West itself was founded on Greek principles, ideologies, the Greek language, you name it. So that in itself was just a ridiculous statement because the guy himself was ridiculous. It's also come out that he was cooperating with Henry Kissinger in the U.S. government in 1973 to overthrow the Greek junta. And in my book, Hellenic Crisis by John Kountouris, Hellenic Crisis by John Kountouris, which you can find on Amazon, I go over that in detail with documents, with statements from Greek officials, how basically Konstantinos Karamanlis was a major puppet, and he helped to overthrow Georgios Papadopoulos, or you can call him just George Papadopoulos, who for about at least 6 years bring about the greatest period in all of modern Greek history, in all fronts. Socially, economically, religiously. During that era, my family lived in Greece, and that era was a golden era. They bring in private investment. All industries were booming. They were building up infrastructure at that time. Aristotle Onassis was at his peak. He was investing in Greece. He had created Olympic Airlines and so many other, companies and things of that sort in Greece, and had donated a major portion of his wealth, of course, to the Greek state. So the United States didn't want that, and that's why they basically had to overthrow it. But of course, they got help from the Turks, they got help from Europe, and they got help from Israel. And Israel played a major role in the overthrow of George Papadopoulos. And basically what happened was during the Yom Kippur War in 73, when the Jews wanted to use the Greek airspace to fly over to the Middle East to attack the Arabs, the Israeli officials at that time went to the Greek junta leader, George Papadopoulos, and they said, give us basically the right to fly over, or to use your airspace so we can fly over to the Middle East. And basically, George Papadopoulos straight out told them, no way, and you can go pound sand. Well, the Jews in Israel did not like that, so they went and complained to their fellow Jew, Henry Kissinger. And Henry Kissinger basically at that time was already deciding, along with the U.S. government, to overthrow the junta anyway. So he devised a plan in cooperation with the CIA and the Israeli Mossad to overthrow George Papadopoulos and install in one of their puppet leaders to take over the junta, and of course that's exactly what took place. Now I know all this firsthand because my relative, by marriage, Konstantin Savalas, who is the brother of the late great Greek-American actor Telly Savalas, told me all this personally back in January of 2012 because he was a high diplomatic official of the U.S. State Department during that era. And in 1974, July of 1974, when the Cypriot crisis first broke, he happened to be stationed in Greece as a U.S. diplomat. And he told me that when this crisis broke, he was basically called by the Greek press to give an answer because that was his job. He had to give a statement to the Greek press. But before he did, Henry Kissinger called him on the phone and told him straight, don't say a damn word to the Greeks about everything that we're doing right now. Just hush it all up. Don't say anything. That's what Henry Kissinger told Konstantin Savalas, and Konstantin Savalas told all of that to me. So that's firsthand information. And of course, he's saying it now in retrospect, now that he's, up in years. He's about 94 years old now. But, basically, that was firsthand information. You're not going to get that information anywhere else. And that has confirmed all the quote-unquote conspiracy theories that Greeks and non-Greeks have had for many years about the U.S.'s role in the overthrow of the Greek junta. So it's been proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that indeed the United States played a major role in the overthrow of the Greek junta, and so did Great Britain, so did Israel, so did Turkey. And it's a long, extensive issue, which, again, I will do broadcasts on this. So you all understand what's going on in Greece, because that's a very important issue due to the fact that at that time, which is only about 40 years ago, roughly, Greece had an opportunity to become a very powerful nation again and a very powerful player on the world scene. But it had, the reason why it fell is because the New World Order does not want a very powerful Christian, influential government in the world with powerful natural resources, et cetera, because they want to bring in the New World Order, which is anti-Christian, anti-freedom, anti-anything that has to do with the old Byzantine Empire, which is what we Greeks are the remnants of, along, of course, with the Russians, Serbians, and those type of people. And the whole New World Order stated goal is to eradicate all of that from the face of the earth, and they've been planning that ever since the black nobility of Venice to the Illuminati in Bavaria, Germany, and on into the continuators of the Illuminati today, who are nothing more than the successors of the black nobility from Venice. So it's a huge issue, but Henry Kissinger himself confirmed all this. Not only in his Harvard thesis, but also in other publications over the years. So anyway, Greece today, it's undergoing basically a steady decline on all fronts, and this is all tactical. So this is the message, again, that I want to convey to the English-speaking world, and that basically I want to emphasize to the world that Greece is being used as the scapegoat or as the whipping boy, the poster boy of the world economic crisis. So basically my question to all those listening right now is this: why is it that the Greek crisis, why is Greece being used as the whipping boy for the world economic crisis? And why basically right now is there talk about a Grexit, meaning Greece leaving the Eurozone, in parallel with talks, with rumors, not necessarily rumors, but with official statements from the British government that they too could have a Brexit, where they actually leave the European Union as a whole, which is kind of strange, because Great Britain is, of course, one of the founding countries of the European Union, because the elites that reside there in the Crown, which is basically within London, I'm talking about the Rothschilds, I'm talking about the rest of the Illuminati, they're the masterminds behind the European Union. So obviously that doesn't make sense. So, all this news about a Greek Grexit is basically coming out in the news along with this news about a Brexit, which sounds very, very strange. And just the other day you had the Prime Minister of Great Britain, Cameron, come out on TV and basically say that a Brexit could lead to World War III. That sounds very, very interesting on the part of Mr. Cameron. So, anyway, what I'd like to do is get into another news item. About a week and a half ago, I had a Skype interview with Karen Hudes. Karen Hudes. Her last name is spelled Hudes. She is the former legal counsel of the World Bank. She was there for over 20 years. She's also worked in the IMF. She's worked in the Treasury Department in D.C. She's a very influential person, but she also happens to be a whistleblower, because back in 2007, she basically came out and said there's such a thing called the World Trust, which is also termed the Global Debt Facility. And basically, in this huge trust, which is somewhere in the World Bank, in the assets of the World Bank. There are hidden treasures from nations all over the world. And basically this was set up years ago by the former Prime Minister of the Philippines, Ferdinand Marcos, and Jose Rizal. Basically, he was a very influential figure in the Philippines, and who helped to get rid of Spanish colonial rule in the Philippines over like 100 years ago during the wars that were going on. So Karen is the first person to come out as a whistleblower and say that there is this huge global debt facility, which is like worth $2 quadrillion, literally $2 quadrillion, because at this time Jose Rizal had arranged with some good elements within the international community to basically get him into the Vatican, get a stronghold, a foot into the Vatican, so that he could become the then Black Pope. This was like in the 1930s. And if you don't know about the Black Pope in the Vatican, you can Google that. Anyway, the story is long and a bit complicated, but Karen is basically the only person that can verify that this trust is real, and she claims it is. And I believe her because she worked in the World Bank for years, and she's come out for about 7-8 years as a whistleblower. She's been all over TV. She's all over the internet. She's been seen by millions of people. If you just Google or YouTube her name, you could see all her videos. And she's also the head of a huge. It's a it's one of the biggest bar associations in all of America, and she's using her pool to basically expose this. And she says that she is now basically the testator, or the person who's responsible to dispose of the World Debt Facility, the Global Debt Facility, or the International Trust, which is full of basically assets worth about $2 quadrillion, which can offset the world's debts, all the nations' debts. So, it's a very interesting story. I have heard this in the past, but I had to get this information straight from her. And basically I did. And so we had about an hour-long interview over Skype, and I asked her if I could write an article about her in the Greek newspaper that I write for. And she said okay. So she gave me some material, and I ran with our first article, and it made front page in our newspaper yesterday. Basically with the title, "The World Bank is Real, but in Greece they now want to basically cut people's pensions and salaries on a regular basis, if need be, according to a new mechanism that the Greek government wants to basically set up in order to make this happen automatically, so that they can please and appease the Troika, in order for Greece to get more favorable terms from the Troika to mitigate the effect of the economic crisis, to basically lower the level of the Greek debt, to get a haircut in the debt, and all these other empty promises, all these other empty hopes that Greece is never going to get from the Troika, because the Troika is not there to help Greece at all. So anyway, this article made front page, and right now it's making headways all over Greece. And it's going to spill, too, into international media, so just wait and look for it. You're gonna hear about it. How I, John Kountouris, and my colleague, Yanis Papazisis, wrote together this article with Karen Houdi's about this issue about the Global Debt Facility. Now, you can Google it yourself. It's a very long, extensive issue. It's fascinating, to say the least. And basically what Karen says is this is the hope for the world to offset the debts, and this was all set up by good elements, like I said, from elitists in the international community years ago, in conjunction with this guy Jose Rizal and Ferdinand Marcos. Ferdinand Marcos apparently is a much more prominent figure in world history than we thought. And Karen Houdi's says And you can go to her YouTube channel, Kountouris, and look at her latest broadcast from, I believe, yesterday, the 17th, where she states basically how Ferdinand Marcos was overthrown in 1986 by the CIA because he didn't want to surrender over the authority to sign away these assets to whatever party that would request them from him. So therefore, the United States sent the CIA in to overthrow him. So apparently, he and his family still have power over this, and why he was chosen at this back in, I think it was right around the beginning of World War II is what Karen says. I don't know. And all I know, there's a lot of things we still don't know. But I mean, for a person like Karen to come out and reveal all this stuff, being the legal counsel of the World Bank for years, that's a huge, huge deal. Anyway, this is John Kountouris from Greek News On Demand. Thank you for listening. And I will have a much more revealing broadcast for you next time. So stay tuned. Bye-bye.